As Mrs. Snover handed out the photocopied drawings, I immediately grabbed the Kelly green and tangerine orange crayons out of the coloring box and began filling in Jesus' robe with the loveliest shade of green. "Matthew!" yelled Mrs. Snover. "What are you doing?" "I'm coloring Jesus," I said, looking up into her stern face. "Oh, Matthew," said Mrs. Snover, stopping at my chair and gazing over my shoulder like a very disappointed nun. "No, no, no. Jesus' robe was not green. It was white." "That's not green. That's Kelly green," I said, correcting her politely. If she had given me the opportunity, I was going to explain to her the difference between Kelly green and ordinary green, but I didn't get that chance. Before I could say anything else, she looked at me and frowned, which caused me to sink back into my chair and concentrate on holding back tears. Mrs. Snover considered it impolite to receive correction from anyone under the age of 37, no matter how politely it had been said. "It's still green, Matthew," she snapped, looking around at all of the other children's white papers. "That's beside the point. Jesus didn't dress in those colors." Since I was only 7, I wasn't sure how she knew so much about the dress code of Jesus. As I got older, I wondered whether or not she had been there in another life, perhaps as one of the demons he cast out. "I'm coloring Jesus the same colors as Aquaman," I said, looking down at my paper. To me, it made perfect sense for Jesus to look like Aquaman. Not only was Jesus holding fish in this particular picture, but just last week, Mrs. Snover had told us about Jesus' miracle of making a large school of fish jump into a net and sacrifice themselves so he could look good in front of the disciples. Sure, I was pretty certain miracles didn't occur telepathically, but he certainly used some kind of superhero strength to make those fish obey his command. "Well, I guess you have no choice but to continue coloring his robe green," said Mrs. Snover disappointedly. "Just make sure you color his hair brown and leave his face white." "I was going to leave his face white," I said, again, politely, thinking the very idea of coloring Jesus any other color than white would have been rather ridiculous. Everybody in the class knew Jesus was white. "Well, at least your picture will be somewhat accurate," Mrs. Snover said. I smiled. "If you want to, you can call him Aqua Jesus." She never did, of course. Mrs. Snover believed that coloring Jesus' robe green and orange went against everything she knew about Jesus, and nothing I did was going to change her mind. I don't think Jesus could have changed her mind.